How's it going, everybody? In this video, we're going to go ahead and take a look at our next data center virtualization topic, which is going to be taking the FreeNAS VM and Iscsi configuration we did in the previous video, and now we're going to go into our ESXi hosts and configure those hosts to be able to leverage the storage that we set up. So we'll be able to dive into the really cool stuff of shared storage. And we'll take a look at exactly how to work with all that type of stuff. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that's actually going to be. In this video, we're going to go ahead and start deploying Iscsi communications between VirtHost 1 and VirtHost 2. So let's go ahead and log into VirtHost 1 and get this party started. So the process for this is going to be very similar to what we covered in the Iscsi overview. So I'm going to go ahead and begin the process of setting this stuff up. So remember, we need to go through and first go to the networking tab, and we need to go in and create a port group. We're going to add a port group, and the port group itself is going to be called SAN, and underneath here, we don't have the storage switch created yet, but what we can do is, I'm going to go ahead and cancel that real quick. I'm going to go ahead and go to vSwitch, add a new standard switch. I'm going to call this the SAN-V switch. And then we're going to associate VMNIC 2, which is what we want. So 2 and 3 will be associated to that. And I'm going to go ahead and click on Add. Alright, so now we have that. I'm going to go ahead and go to Port Groups, add a port group. I'm going to call this SAN, and we're going to associate this to the SAN vSwitch. Click on Add. Alright, now that we have that done, we can go to the VM kernel NICs, and I'm going to add a VM kernel NIC. The port group is going to be associated to, we're going to call this we'll say SAN1, and we're going to associate this to the SAN vSwitch. We're going to give it a static IP address and expand this little guy right here. And the IP address here, because the subnetting we're using is going to be 10.1.2, so it's going to be 10.1.2. And I'll put in here 11 for host 1 with the /24 mask. And I'm going to go ahead and click on Create. And there we go. So now that we have that process done, next thing we have to go do, so just to recap, we've got our vSwitch created, we have our port group created, and we have a VM kernel adapter created. Now I'm going to come over here to storage. I'm going to go underneath adapters. And right now we don't have an Iscsi adapter set up. So we're going to click on Software Iscsi. We're going to click on Enabled and give that a couple seconds to load. And then as soon as it loads, we'll be able to start doing our configuration. So I'm going to come in here and add a network port binding. So we're going to use VM kernel 1, click select, and then in the dynamic target, we're going to come in here and I'm going to give this the IP address of 10.1.2.25 on port 3260, which is for Iscsi. I'm going to go ahead and click on save, and that's going to go ahead and add the adapter. So we're going to go ahead and refresh. The adapter is now there. One of the things we're going to have to do is go ahead and rescan this adapter to see if there's any storage associated to it. So I'm going to click on rescan. That's going to go out and do a scan of the storage. I'm going to come over here to devices, and right there we can see that the storage showed up right there, the 750 gig drive that we want. If we come over here to data stores, if we want to add a new data store, we can. I'm going to say create a new VMFS data store. I'm going to click on next. And we can see, I'm going to call this guy SAN, and we're going to use this particular drive to do it with. Click next. We're going to use the full disk. We're going to use VMFS 6. Now if we wanted to use a percentage, we could, and we could use a variation of that, and normally there's a way to adjust this, but I'm going to go ahead and click on Next and then Finish. Since the entire contents of this disk are about to be erased and replaced with specified configuration, yep, go ahead. It's basically going to reformat it. Now the cool thing about it is when we do this on this particular device, now that we've done it, once we go to any of the other ESXi hosts and add Iscsi storage to the host, guess what? Well, at that point in time, we're just configuring each additional host to add storage. We don't have to go through the process of adding a new data store. So if we come over here to the host, we're going to see over here that we have 800 gigs of storage, which is a combination of both Iscsi and locally attached storage, which is what we want to see. So I'm going to come over here to VirtHost 1. There's our VirtHost 2. We're going to go ahead and log in to VirtHost 2, which is not currently set up to do anything yet, which is just a basic deployment. We're going to go ahead and get him configured. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to uncheck that box. So go over here to the networking tab. I'm going to go ahead and create the virtual switch. Add the new virtual switch. And we needed to do that because of the fact that we have a dedicated uplink for it. Again, SAN-V switch. And VMNIC2 is fine. There's a bunch of other NICs that we could use. VMNIC2 is going to be fine. It's actually going to be 2 and 3. So I'm going to do that. Click on Add. And then I'm going to go to Port Groups. Click Add. And in the port group, I'm going to type in SAN. And then the vSwitch will be vSwitch, the SAN vSwitch. Click on Add. Alright, now that that's good to go, I'm going to come over here to VM kernel NICs and then add a VM kernel NIC. I'll type in SAN1, and if you're wondering why I'm using the number 1, and that's pretty simple because once I get a little further along in the deployment, we will actually take a look at Iscsi Multipathing. We'll talk more about the storage pluggable architecture in another video, but basically the idea here is we can have a SAN1, SAN2, so you can tie multiple VM kernel adapters to a single Iscsi adapter, so you can actually allow multipathing of your data. Come down here and attach the vSwitch for storage, set up a static IP, and this one here will be 10.1.2.12/24, and click on Create. Alright, now that that's done, we're going to go ahead and give that a couple seconds to refresh. And then come over here to storage. Same process as before. Go to Adapters, Iscsi, and then we're going to go ahead and click on Enable. We're going to give that the few seconds that it needs to create the adapter. Now the question might come up, well, what do you do in the event that you don't want to keep the adapter? So you want to get rid of it. Well, you would click on Disabled, and you have to actually reboot the host for it to go away. I'm going to add a binding. I'm going to click on VM kernel 1, click on Select, and then here underneath Dynamic Target, I'm going to choose 10.1.2.25, click outside of it real quick, and save configuration. Now that I've done that, we've got everything we need in order to have our Iscsi communication set up. So I'm going to do a quick rescan to make sure everything's being scanned appropriately. Click on Devices. We see it there. It's already good to go. So I don't need to go and create anything because it's going to just take time for it to show up here. So if I was to go to storage, adapters, we can see that it's here. It's online. If we go to devices, we can see that it's here. If we were to rescan it, it's there. If we were to go to host, it may not show up right away, which it is in this case here. It's showing up here in total storage, but over here on the left, it doesn't say storage 2. It says storage 1. So eventually that will change, and this will become storage of 2 data stores. But all the storage we need is showing up. If we were to look at the storage eventually underneath data stores, and there's SAN now showing up. So we're good to go. So it's showing up now where we need it to be. So we're in really good shape for that. That's really it when it comes to setting up storage on an ESXi host and how all that comes into play. I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me in this video. Actually, now that I'm here, what I can do, let's go ahead and take a look at actually updating, or uploading, I should say, a operating system. So I'm going to click on the storage on host 2. And to prove that this is actually shared storage, I'm going to click on SAN, and I'm going to go to the data store browser. Now I'm going to upload a file. I'm going to upload the Linux operating system. I'm going to click on upload to SAN. I'm going to go to this PC, documents, and in this case here, it is where did I put? Well, it needs to be here. So I'll have to copy the files to the documents folder. So what I'll do is I'll pause the video real quick. I'll copy the Linux OS to here. Alright, so I copied the ISO file from my local network. So I'm going to go ahead and upload a file and go over here to this PC, documents, there it is. Click on it, click on open. Now what's going to end up happening is it's going to upload from my local PC. So this is, I'm RDP'd into this particular PC. It's going to upload, and I'm going to click on close, but it doesn't stop the upload unless I hit this little guy right here and say cancel. I'm not going to do that. But what will end up happening is it's going to upload to the SAN array, which means that when I go over to this guy and I look at it, I should see that that particular ISO file is in there. Now, if I was to click on storage now, I'm not sure if we'll actually see it yet. It might be a little bit too early. So let's go to data store browser. Yeah, so it's scanning for it, and it actually does see it, but it's not uploaded yet. It's too small. It's like so there's only 106 megs, man. So if I come back over here, it's in the process of uploading. As you can see on the other host, we're able to see it because the storage is shared between the ESXi hosts. And that's really the winner here when it comes down to how all this stuff comes into play. So that is, I'm going to go ahead and pause until this guy is completely done, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so the upload has now completed. I'm going to go over here to this guy and log in. And we're just going to verify that he can see the storage, the full 1.6 gigs of capacity. Let's go ahead and click on the data store browser. And if we click on this guy, 1.54 gigs. So, okay, forgive me for not being 100% accurate. So that just proves that we can see the storage regardless of which host we log into, and all is well. So that is it, ladies and gentlemen. That is it for the implementation of setting up Iscsi on an ESXi host. Hope this was informative for you. Thanks for stopping by and hanging out with me, and until next time, guys, take it easy.